This program is made possible through generous donations from viewers like you. To pledge your support, please visit aroodawakening.tv/give. Thank you.
Why do we argue about stuff in the Bible when we really don't know what we're doing? How many times have you been in a Shabbat midrash or a Bible study, debating back and forth about some minuscule little discrepancy in the Word, only to find out years later that the discrepancy was not a discrepancy at all, but a misunderstanding, and that all of your brilliant arguments were for nothing, because you were wrong in the first place? It's a humbling experience, and one that shows that we need to be open to new understanding, like we're going to talk about tonight in a story about Yeshua right before Passover. Why are we doing this? Well, because it's the end of the sixth day. The sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live!
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio. 30 seconds.
Thank you. One minute to air, Michael.
Oh, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. It's the Great Commission in high definition. Sorry, I couldn't resist. And the definition of the world's greatest co-host is sitting right here. She's the Director of Ministry Development for Rood Awakening International. Please welcome Annie Reed.
How sweet. Just teasing.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. What about you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So tonight's teaching is something very special. We're presenting something special for friends watching tonight who have never considered commemorating Passover as part of their Christian experience, which you and I know is crucial to truly understanding who the Messiah is, why he came, all that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So tonight's teaching is Passover, the Path to Freedom. It's a special teaching from Michael Rood, and if you like what you see, you can actually get the entire teaching on DVD.
Yes, so the teaching is right here, and I just want to read a little bit of it because it's beautifully put. Context is key to understanding scriptures, not stripping words away from the context and constructing judgmental, systematic theologies. Michael Rood created Passover, the Path to Freedom to address the true context of the Exodus, to see the whole story in its proper light.
Indeed, yep. That is really, you really need to understand Passover. You may have heard previously in your life, those are all Jewish things, we don't need to be doing those. Well, even if you don't need to be doing them, do them anyway, because you'll understand a lot more about who Yeshua is. And that really gets you deeper into the Bible, gets you asking important questions and really understanding who he is, why he came, and just the whole story.
Well, our Savior and Messiah was Jewish. Mm-hmm. So he lived as a Jew. And this is important to understanding who he is and why he spoke the way he did the things he did, and why it was such a controversy for the Pharisees and the Sadducees in that time period.
Right. Now, we can't do that subject justice, but Michael sure can, and he does so in the Passover, the Path to Freedom. You can get it at the link at the bottom of your screen there, roodawakening.tv/freedom, and you can also get it at 20% off that when you go to the store and you put it in your cart, make sure to use the promo code Freedom20, all run together, Freedom20, and we'll give you 20% off this teaching this week only.
And I hope that it blesses you. Again, if you're new to this, if you don't quite understand Passover, and for many of us who have been keeping it for many years, it's always refreshing to hear the story once more. We always learn and build on our faith just with these kinds of teachings.
Yeah, it's great, because when people ask you questions too, and you do exactly what Annie's saying, you review it again, you'll go, oh yeah, that's the answer that someone was asking me the other day. That's how I need to respond. So a great teaching tool. Watch Passover, the Path to Freedom. Study it like you would like a class, and you'll have all the answers you need when people ask you questions about, well, why are you doing this Passover thing? So, wonderful thing. Now, speaking of the Passover thing.
We have a big Passover thing coming up.
Yeah, we do. In 2 weeks, Passover. The path to freedom is the teaching. Passover, the Road to Redemption is the event that we're having here in Charlotte. Now, all tickets have been sold. I'm sure you know that by now. It's been sold out for a couple of weeks, but you can still watch online. You go to PassoverCharlotte.com, the very same website, and now we have set up where you can watch online. There's 2 packages, and here's what you can do. You can watch Shabbat Night Live and all of the sessions on Saturday for $79. You can watch it online. You can review it, replay it anytime, as many times as you want, and you can download a set for you to keep. Put it on your computer, watch it again, share it with friends, whatever you want to do. That's cool. So $79 gets you all of that. Now, we also have a package for $99. So it includes all of that, but you also get it on DVD or Blu-ray. So you get all of that, plus you also get 2 health sessions that are not going to be broadcast, and that is on that's earlier on Friday. And that's myself and Mary Tokahoven. We have 2 very intriguing subjects that you're going to want to learn about. So that is only on the DVD and only for those who are in attendance. So that's why you want to get the DVD. Michael's Seder is also, of course, going to be on the DVD, and it's different this year than it has been in previous years.
Every year he does it a little bit different than before, tells a different storyline. I mean, you can learn so much from Passover just from that Seder. But we have teachers that are going to be speaking on subjects like forgiveness. The whole theme is redemption. So it's about redeeming your health and so many other subjects, but we have speakers that will discuss forgiveness, and then the redemption of just your finances, your life in general. And Kent Hoven's actually doing a great teaching on Noah's Ark and how that connects to us now as believers in our redemption.
Right, and that is a great one for kids. In fact, at the actual event, we took out the time where the youth would have something going on separate from that session. We wanted them in the session for that one, for Kent Hoven, for Michael's thing, and also for Kent Hoven. So that's a great one to have on DVD to share with your kids and with other kids. And again, that's why you want to get the if I were you, I'd get the $99 package, because then you get everything. You got it on DVD. It's yours to keep, and you have it forever. So again, go to PassoverCharlotte.com.
Yeah. Spend Shabbat with us. We start at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time that day with your first session, which is Kent Hoven, and then we continue all throughout until 10 p.m. with the Seder ending. We'd love to spend Shabbat with you, get to know you. There's going to be plenty of us that are going to be engaged in the chat room, chatting with you, spending time with you, and making you a part of the family. I mean, we have hundreds of people from around the world that spend this day with us every single feast, and you meet friends, you meet family, and you get to celebrate a feast that Yeshua's kept.
Awesome. Yep.
So.
PassoverCharlotte.com, that's where it all starts. Now, also remember that today is the last day you can get this month's love gift, and that is Purim, the Lazarus Parable Collection. Now, you might be thinking, Purim, Lazarus, wait a minute, that's 2 different stories. That's Esther and Lazarus. Where's the connection? Find out in the teaching. There is a connection. In fact, did you know Lazarus was raised during Purim? And once you hear it from Michael as to the reason why, you'll be like, that's something I'd never heard before. There is a connection. There's a reason for everything Yeshua did and the timing in which he did it. And this teaching is an important teaching to understand that. You'll only get it with the love gift. It's not on YouTube. It's not available any other way. It's not in our store other than if you go to aroodawakening.tv/lovegift. You can get it for a donation of $50 or more. You have several options you can do there with a pull-down menu. So if you want to give more than $50, that's welcome as well. And you help keep this program on the air by doing that, as a matter of fact. And if you want to give more than $100, you'll also get the teaching, but you'll get this scroll of Esther. And this is, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know it's the last day that you can get this. Can we roll it out just so people see how beautiful
it is? Okay, sure,
yes. We try not to roll it out because it's hard to roll back in. But it is such a beautiful piece. It's illustrated really well.
Okay, a rubber band around there too. Okay, go ahead.
So this is exactly how it comes. And it is just beautiful. The details and the paintings, the description, and all it is essentially this Esther story. This is what we call in Hebrew a Megillah.
And there's Hebrew on the back and English on the front, so it's interesting in that sense itself. And yeah, beautiful paper, nice thick paper here. It's on a wooden dowel. and a wooden case as well, and a leatherette casing. So it's a great thing to have. It's a beautiful showpiece, even just to have on the counter or something, and have people ask about it and say, to explain your faith. Why do you do that? Well, you can roll out the scroll and tell them why.
And it's a good way to start new family traditions by rolling out the scroll on Purim and celebrating Purim together. I know it was a few weeks ago, but if you're like me, Esther's one of my favorite books. If I can pick it up and read it, I will do so at any opportunity. So,
indeed.
And again, for a $50 donation, you receive either the DVD or the Blu-ray and Megillah scroll for a $100 donation along with the teaching.
All right, great. So that is our love gift for this month. And again, today is the last day to get it. Now, let's get into what we were talking about before, the Adar Bet. To understand more about that, we need to look at our astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. It's now on sale. It was called the Renaissance Error. The new one is called the Renaissance Error. Not era, but error, because we're talking about Renaissance paintings, what they got right, what they got wrong, and Michael's commentary on that. And now let's find out where we are on this month, on the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar, which is the longest calendar name on the face of the earth. We're on the first Shabbat of the month of Nisan, and there's a ton of stuff going on at this time in the life of the Messiah. Yeshua had just finished making a final tour around the Galilee during Adar Bet, which is an extra month added to the calendar when the barley is not ready yet, which was exactly the situation during the year that he was crucified. We talked about that last week, and you can actually find that episode on Shabbat Night Live at roodawakening.tv/Shabbat if you want to watch it again. Now, this is when Yeshua healed 2 blind men on the way to Jericho. Or was it Jericho? Or after
That's a
Jericho?
great question.
Yeah, it's a good question here. So, this is one of those apparent contradictions in the Bible that people focus on to say that the Bible is not true. It's event number 157 in the Chronological Gospels Bible, page 189, or you can also find it in Luke 18, verses 35 to 43, I think is where it is. Now, Matthew and Mark say that Yeshua healed the 2 men, the blind men, after Jericho, whereas Luke says he was on the way to Jericho. The truth is that there is actually no contradiction here. And the reason why is found in the footnotes of this event in the Chronological Gospels. Let's read what's going on there. Annie, I think you have it there. Event number 157, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here's the crux of the matter right here. Several ancient Greek manuscripts of Luke's Gospel state that Yeshua was approaching Jerusalem, not Jericho, when this healing took place. Since he left Jericho after spending time with Zacchaeus and then healed the blind, it was on the road to Jerusalem that this healing took place. So both cities are involved there, but apparently it was missed in a translation. So it's these little things that make all the difference between convincing someone that the Bible is true when they already have a preconceived notion about it being false. It just goes to show that we need to be open to accepting that we don't know it all, right? And that there are answers out there that we just haven't heard about yet.
Which is a perfect reason to have the Chronological Gospels. He clearly tells you, he being Michael Rood, what is happening, the context, the cultural references that you need to know to truly understand the scriptures that you're reading on a daily basis. There's no better way to understand who Yeshua was or who the God that we serve is, than with the Chronological Gospels. It's a beautiful piece. You can actually purchase your copy at our store. It's something that you're going to want to continuously study throughout your entire lifetime. I mean, I haven't been able to put it down. You can tell where I'm reading right now in preparation for Passover, and that's event 219. It is finished. So.
Yeah, these are good. It's not just commentary like you'd find in every other Bible. It's historical things that Michael has gathered from all kinds of sources that you've probably never heard before. Now, Annie mentioned Passover. Coming up, it's Passover, the Path to Freedom. If you like what you see, tell your friends and family to watch the replay at roodawakening.tv/Shabbat. That replay is only possible because of you, in fact. Thank you if you have donated to this ministry. In fact, it's the only reason you are seeing this program at all, and the only reason we can record these episodes and offer them online. We have no corporate sponsors. You make it happen. And if that scroll of Esther that you saw earlier seems like something you could use to share the truth with friends and family, you can get it right now along with Michael's teaching on Purim, and it'll help us keep us on the air. Here's how you can do that right now.
As the disciples prepare to commemorate Purim, the story of how Queen Esther's bravery saved the Israelites from certain death, Yeshua receives word that his friend Lazarus is gravely ill. Yet Yeshua does not come to his aid until all seems lost. just like the story of Purim. This month, Michael Rood presents an exclusive new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable.
This is one of the many times in the Gospel of John where a scribe added in a description that was not in the original text.
Purim, the Lazarus Parable is Michael Rood's new teaching from the 20-episode Love Gift Teaching Series. And the only way you can get it is with your Love Gift donation in March.
We have to understand what they, the scribes and Pharisees, teach. You know, they who will not see the kingdom of heaven, we have to understand what they're saying. The Torah says one thing, but how they read it can be something different.
Own Purim, the Lazarus Parable, right now when you give a Love Gift donation of $50 or more. Or donate $100 or more to get this new teaching plus the story of Esther on a scroll. A Megillah, concealed in an elegant wooden case. This scroll includes the entire biblical book of Esther, English on one side, Hebrew on the other, illustrated in full-color classic artwork. And the case features a leather-like wrap with gold embossing and a metallic seal depicting the story of Esther. Get this attractive showpiece now, plus Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable.
Whatever you give away, whatever you forfeit for me, you'll receive back 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life.
Act now to get Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable, plus the Scroll of Esther. Hurry, this offer is only available in March. Make your love gift donation now, online or by phone.
It seems that the news has been flooded recently by those who have either never moved out of mommy and daddy's home or have moved right straight onto a college campus where their student loans are piling up into the $500,000 range. But obviously these people have no idea what's going on in the real world. They are thinking somehow that the borders should be open and anyone who wants to can come in, they can work in this country, do whatever they want. Apparently they have never ever stepped foot outside of the United States of America because that is not the way it is in any country. And we have joining us again, Nehemiah Gordon, who is not only a United States citizen, but a citizen of the land of Israel. And he has many friends that come over to Israel and visit him over there, coming in from around the world. And they have exactly 3 months before they are illegal in Israel. They're not to work, and it's just like that in Germany and every other nation around the world that they protect their people, their citizens, and now we've got my goodness, it's just a cacophony of morons and idiots out there that have obviously never traveled. Nehemiah, what's going on out there?
So, Michael, you know, I lived in China for a year. And when I arrived in the city where I was working with a legal permit, you know, I had a work permit, which was very difficult to actually attain. I arrived there and I had to go register with the police with an agency called the Public Security Bureau. And I said, well, I'm not some kind of criminal. They said, no, you're a foreigner. We need to know where you are. If you go sleep in any other place other than your registered address, you have to first go register with, if you go to a hotel, you get registered with the police that you're staying that night in that place. So what America does is very unusual, where you have these completely porous borders. We don't know who's coming across. It's really unprecedented anywhere in the world.
Well, it's really, I think it's unprecedented because every time I come through, I have to go through the searches and to make sure that I am coming in legally. And, you know, I can still recite all 9 of my general orders for interior guard from the Marine Corps, but that's not good enough. I've got to have the right idea, and they've got to be able to identify me.
Well, you know what they do in Australia is if you try to come in legally into their country, they put you on an island in the Pacific. It's like a horrible place. They actually, you know, think it's been said by international organizations, this is just a horrible place to be, but they stick you there for years. And did you know that President Obama agreed to take 1,000 of those people who had tried illegally to get into Australia? He said, well, we'll take them off your hands. We want some more illegal aliens. Literally that happens.
Oh my goodness, Obama. Yeah, he and Hillary, ISIS, the love child of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and now he, of course, wanted to open the things wide open. Well, of course, President Trump is, acting actually on what Obama identified as these terrorist states to properly vet people before they come in. But, I'm hoping that things get really shut down. We just don't need a bunch of religious, fanatical wackos coming into this country who believe in some kind of fictitious moon god and that we all ought to be under Sharia law instead of the Constitution. They want their Sharia law, go out there and milk your camel.
I mean, look, Michael, we're not even, just to be clear, we're not talking about, the dishwasher from Guatemala here. What we're talking about, just to be clear, we're talking about people from Afghanistan and from Syria who tried to get into Australia. They say, well, we don't know who these people are. And they stuck them on this island in the middle of nowhere. And Obama said he would take them. And now apparently President Trump is bound by this agreement. But Michael, in Israel, we have a different sort of problem. We have people coming into the country through these secret tunnels.
Tell us about this.
So recently a report came out by the Israel Comptroller's Office, and it delineated the problem of the tunnels and actually showed that under the pressure from the left-wing media, even the Israeli army has been underplaying the danger of these tunnels. These are tunnels that go underneath from Gaza into Israel, and some of them actually from Lebanon into Israel.
That's right, which are fed by the Hezbollah out of Syria. Those soldiers.
So it's Hezbollah up in the north in Lebanon, coming into the Israeli border, and in Gaza it's Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, primarily Hamas. And you have to understand, Hamas is the elected government of Gaza. They get money from the European Union and other international aid organizations, and that money is supposed to go to build hospitals and roads and other humanitarian facilities. And they literally use that very same money to build these terror tunnels. And we now have definitive proof of this. They uncovered, one of the things they exposed is a terror tunnel going into Israel. And you can see in the photograph a sack of cement. And the sack has Hebrew writing on it. And there's only one way they could have gotten a sack of cement with Hebrew writing, and that is if that was given as part of the humanitarian aid to build hospitals in Gaza. And they used that very same sack of cement to build this terror tunnel. They cost millions of dollars, these tunnels, because Gaza is very sandy ground. You have to reinforce it with concrete so the tunnel doesn't collapse on your head. And they use these as an offensive weapon. And many of your listeners, Michael, many of the people watching will remember Gilad Shalit, this poor Israeli soldier who was kidnapped during an operation. The Palestinians showed up behind Israeli lines and opened fire on the Israelis, killed some Israeli soldiers, took Gilad Shalit as a prisoner, kept him in a dungeon for 5 years. He was eventually traded for 1,027 terrorists. The Israeli government turned over 1,027 terrorists in exchange to free Gilad Shalit after 5 years in this dungeon.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, they should have had Obama negotiate that. No, Obama gave one American deserter for 5 terrorist generals who are now, aren't they living someplace over on the other side of Israel?
Yeah. Well, they're living at large in Dubai as heroes.
That's right.
Under the protection of the government of the United Arab Emirates. But these tunnels have been designated now by the Israel Comptroller's Office as a strategic threat. And they said one of the problems is the Israeli army and the Shin Bet, the intelligence services, have been looking at these as a tactical threat, meaning, if somebody comes out from the tunnels, we'll open fire. It's no big deal. It's a problem, but we'll deal with it. And they're saying, no, this is a strategic threat to the survival of the state of Israel. We could wake up one day and find out that thousands of Israelis were slaughtered. This could happen. They have 15 tunnels that we know of. We don't know where they are exactly, but we know there are 15 terror tunnels leading to Israel. They could end up injecting thousands of terrorists that could just show up in some town somewhere, heavily armed, and just start slaughtering innocent civilians.
Well, this is happening up north, up in Samaria. Wasn't something recently happened with a family up there?
Yeah, so recently what happened is a terrorist infiltrated into a Jewish town, and there was a man, his wife, and his baby in the house, and the mother and the baby. The mother grabbed the baby and went and locked herself into a back room while the man went for his handgun, shot the terrorist, and just barely survived this terror attack. Well, imagine if it had been 100 terrorists who had just shown up. In that case, they didn't have a tunnel. He hopped over a fence, or dug under a fence maybe. But imagine if they just show up one day and wrote a town of 25,000 people, and it could be thousands of terrorists, certainly hundreds, because easily come over. You send 10 through each of the 15 tunnels. They show up and just start massacring people who may not be armed. This is the potential for just what the Arabs are Muslims extremists are doing in Iraq and Syria. They want to do. They're jealous of ISIS. They want to show that they can do this to the Israelis.
Now, when we speak of tunnels here, a lot of people are thinking of the tunnels in Vietnam. These are very sophisticated. These are concrete lined. You can literally put thousands of people through that, terrorists through those tunnels, and come up on the other side and be mass murdering entire cities in Israel just in a moment of time. It is about time that they identified this as an existential threat to Israel, and that the people that are responsible for this, it's like, kill them all, let God sort them out.
Well, I don't know if we should kill them all, but we definitely have to do something about these terror tunnels. And Michael, I was in Vietnam, not as a soldier, as a tourist a few years ago, and I went into the tunnels, and these are far more sophisticated than the Vietnamese tunnels. All of Gaza is a warren of tunnels underneath, and they stretch out into Egypt, and they've destabilized Sinai and northern Sinai in Egypt. They're trying to destroy the Israeli border region, and they are a serious threat. And this is the Israel State Comptroller's Office, who is calling out the Israeli army for saying this is not being taken seriously enough.
That's right. So Israel is trying to secure their borders, while in the United States, we have had those who have been the enemies of the Republic who have attempted to destroy the borders that we have, and it's opened it up to terrorists coming in from around the world. Hopefully, this president can take a stand against this, and by order reverse some of these things. Nehemiah, thanks for being with us, and we will be back with more updates from Israel as things continue to progress in this new world order. Thank you, Nehemiah.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Passover 2017 is sold out, but it's not too late to catch all the action online. Get your Watch Online package now, including a special Passover edition of Shabbat Night Live, plus all Saturday sessions featuring Hebrew Roots teachers Bill Cloud, Steve Mutria, and David Robinson, plus radio personality Josh Tolley, creation scientist Kent Hovind, and Michael Rood's famous Seder narrative. Watch live, replay, even download them to keep, all for just $79. Or get the premium package to watch, replay, download, and get it all on DVD or Blu-ray for just $99. Plus, your DVD or Blu-ray package also includes 2 bonus natural health teachings you won't see online, featuring vaccine expert Mary Taka Hovind and naturopathic doctor Scott Laird. You get it all for just $99. Get your Watch Online package now at PassoverCharlotte.com.
The composite of the gospel records tell us that before the Passover lamb was sacrificed the following morning, that Yeshua had his Last Supper with his disciples, in which he took bread, arton, leavened bread, and he took wine, and he said, "This represents my body, which will be broken for you. This cup represents my shed blood, which will pay for the iniquity." It is this very thing that the Melchizedek shared with Abraham. As Yeshua said, Abraham saw my day and rejoiced. And when the Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine, he shared with them about the coming of the Messiah, about his broken body, about his shed blood. And Abraham gave 1/10 of everything that he owned and laid it at the feet of the Melchizedek. He saw Yeshua's day and he rejoiced. And so now, every time we do this, every Sabbath, every meal in which there's bread and wine, in which we take this and we bless the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, this is my body, which is broken for you. As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And then Yeshua took the cup, and he said, blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth the fruit of the vine, the creator of the fruit of the vine. And every time we do this, we do remember his death and what he did for us until he comes. One day at the marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift his cup and say, I have not had a drop of this, as I promised at the Last Supper. I've been waiting for you. Now, l'chaim, to life everlasting. Welcome to Passover, the Path of Freedom. This is episode 1 of the 5-part series leading up to Passover, and this is the birth of the nations. Our exodus from Egypt could not have transpired unless we first were in Egypt. And the story of how we got into Egypt, the nation of Israel, is one of the greatest stories in the entire human epoch. And it takes us all the way back to the time of the flood. And so to understand the end, we have to understand the beginning. And to understand the Passover, it is going to take us about 5 weeks of laying the foundations to find out how this one family, this chosen people, are chosen to be the priests, the representatives of the Most High God. But in order for them to even need a priesthood, for mankind to need someone to show the way back into the grace of the Almighty, we have to go back to the flood. And please take your Bibles, and we're going to turn to Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9, and we are going to go actually after the flood. We're not going to detail the incident of the flood itself, but in the 18th verse of Genesis chapter 9, we read, the sons of Noah that went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. Now you see that parenthetical phrase right here in the book of Genesis, in your King James Version of the Bible, and this lets you know that we are being set up. Because Ham, it says now, and Ham was the father of Canaan. Well, this is going to transpire after many years that Ham is going to have his youngest son by the name of Canaan, but the reason that we're told is that we are starting a storyline here that is going to then take us for generations, for hundreds of years, for all this to play out. But to understand what Canaan did and how it affects planet Earth, this is where it all begins. Verse 19. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and from them was the whole earth overspread. Or as we would say in modern English, it was plentished, or it was filled by these 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And so it is again telling us, setting us up, because we're going to find out how the world was filled with these 3 families when we get to chapter 11, when at the Tower of Babel. But now we continue on. In verse 20, and Noah began as a man who planted a vineyard. The word began that I have here is literally from the Hebrew, means wounded. And it's really it means he began or he started over. because after 600 years before the flood and spending all this time, 100 years building the ark, now life starts over. He's an old man, and his hopes, his dreams, where he started from was all wounded, and so it's time to start over. And this many times is used for middle-aged and elderly men because, you know, when we're young, we're full of vitality, we've got hopes and we've got dreams, but then life happens and we become wounded and there's an opportunity and a need to start over. And Noah started over as a husbandman or as a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. He drank the wine, got drunk, and was uncovered, by whom we don't know yet. He was uncovered in his tent. Then Ham, the father of Canaan, and again, Canaan is his youngest son. Why is it even brought in here? Because Ham saw the nakedness of his father, told his two brothers, Shem and Japheth, who were outside. So Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on their shoulders, went in backward, covered the nakedness of their father. They faced the opposite direction so they could not see their father's nakedness. But when Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his younger son had done to him. Now, we find out that in chapter 10, verse 21, that Japheth is the elder. And when it says elder and younger, we know that elder and younger are relative terms. And in Old King James English, we don't have young, younger, and youngest. It is relative when it says Japheth the elder, that means he is the eldest of the brothers, the elder of the two other brothers. And so when Noah awoke and saw what his younger son, whose younger son is this speaking of? It is speaking of Ham's younger son, Canaan. Canaan is the one that was responsible for the deed. Ham discovered it, then told his brothers, and his brothers went in to take care of the situation. And when Noah found out what Ham's younger son, which is Canaan, had done to him, he said, appropriately, cursed be Canaan, who is the youngest son of Ham. A servant, and it means the lowest of servants, shall he be unto his brethren. Then he said, blessed be Yahovah, Elohim of Shem. May the Lord God bless Shem. Canaan shall be his servant. God shall also enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan also shall be his servant. And so now it tells us the length of Noah's life, and then he died. Now in chapter 10, verse 1, we get into the table of nations. These are the generation, or the offsprings of the son of Noah. And this is where the synopsis begins of what transpires from these three men, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it concludes, the synopsis concludes in chapter 10, verse 32. And we're going to select a few very important parts here, because without understanding this, we will not understand either the history of Israel or the history of the human race. So we continue on. These are the offspring of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, it says in verse 2, and it goes on and lists them, and then it says in verse 5, by these, the sons of Japheth, were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Now here again, we have a setup to tell us what is going to be transpired, because they are not divided up, because the whole earth is of one language at this time, of one tongue, of one family, of the family of Noah. And so it is telling us what is going to be transpiring after the incident of the Tower of Babel, which human history cannot be understood without the event of chapter 11 of the book of Genesis. Anthropology cannot be put together. It's a fairy tale outside of this. This is how we know. And now, verse 6, the sons of Ham. Now we had the sons of Japheth, who is the eldest. Now we have the sons of Ham, which is Cush, Mitzrayim, Put in Canaan. And so we have now Canaan. He is the younger of the sons of Ham. And then it tells us about the sons of Cush. And now in verse 8 it says that Cush, the son of Ham, begat Nimrod. And Nimrod began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, before Yahovah. The word before is a panai, in the face of, in opposition. He was a mighty hunter. He captured men. He was an absolute tyrant, and we're going to find out the details of this. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter, in opposition in the face of Yahovah, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. The beginning, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. And out of that land, out of the land of Shinar, where the Tower of Babel was, went forth Asher. Now who is Asher? Asher is the son of Shem. So again, it's telling us what is going to transpire after the confusion of languages at the Tower of Babel. Now Asher is the son of Shem, but what did Asher do? Because now we have Nimrod, we have Ham's son Cush, who begat Nimrod, Nimrod's one world government empire, and out of Babylon, after the confusion of languages, came forth Asher. And he built Nineveh, which is in Assyrian the house of Ninus, which is, Ninus is Assyrian for Nimrod, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calach, which is modern day Nimrud, which is a more proper translation, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, which is a great city. And so Babylonian sun worship, which had been all put in place before the confusion of languages, now it is Asher who brings this over into the land which becomes known as Assyria or Asheria from Asher, who is a Shemite, who is a son of Shem. And now we're going to continue on down because the youngest son of Ham is brought up in verse 15. Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn, and Het, and the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgasite, the Hivite, the Arkite, the Sinite, the Arvadite, the Zemarite, the Hamathite, and afterward, and what is this afterward again? This afterward is after the Tower of Babel incident where the languages were confused. The families of the Canaanites were spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites became from Zidon, as thou comest unto Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and even unto Lasha. And so this is what is almost all-inclusive of what is nowadays the modern land of Israel. These cities, the cities of the plains, Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, which were all destroyed by fire and brimstone, and Zeboim, those are the four cities, and Zoar have all been found. The imprint of the remains of these have all been left, and we're going to be into that in just a little bit. But this is where the Canaanites. Now, let's stop this for just a minute. Canaan was cursed because of his sexual perversion. And this sexual perversion, finally, after the confusion of languages, these people who were cursed for their father's sexual perversion now come into a land, and the names of the cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, Sodom. You know, we understand what sodomy is. I mean, by the time you have this grossly immoral, repugnant, vile, and disgusting sin that is, it's even a shame to even think about what these perverts were doing and enslaving people and trafficking and child, pedophilia, which is all the rage now among the priesthood in Rome. But it's a misnomer. Pedophilia, which is child, philia, or phileo, love, it's anything but child love. It is the most absolute debauched thing that a person could do. And this is what these people were into. In the land of Israel, even today, every one of these ancient ruins that are dug up, these tells, they find the statue of Easter, the bare-breasted goddess of fertility from Babylon. And these are Canaanite goddesses. You can buy them in antique stores. Cost you $5,000 a piece if you want one of these things, but they were into this rampant sexual perversion, buying and selling people, abusing them to death. This is what was going on. And we're going to see the details of this, but it's important to understand that they were cursed by Noah, and that curse remains on them. Now they are squatting in a land that doesn't belong to them. Now we continue on, verse 21. And Shem, the father of the children of Eber. Now, why does it bring this up? Shem, the father of the children of Eber. Eber is going to be like 6 generations later. Eber, Hebrew. It means to cross over. And we see that in verse 25, verse 22, it says that the children of Shem are Elam and Asher, or in fact, said Lud and Aram. Okay, so just as I was saying. Now, in verse 25, unto Eber were born 2 sons, and the name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. This is not talking about the division of the continents. That is probably the best articulated in the hydroplate theory of Dr. Walter Brown, the dividing of the continents and what happened at the time of the flood. This is not what it's talking about. Keep it in context. It's talking about dividing the nations at the Tower of Babel, which is the very next verse, and we are given the exact number of years to the birth of Peleg so that we will understand when this transpired, which is very important. Which is, and it's less than 400 years after the flood that finally the Almighty had to step in and circumvent the one world economic, political, and religious world government system, a system of totalitarian slavery, a one world government, a novus ordo seclorum of the day that had to be intervened by the Almighty because there was no amount of evil that would be held back from the twisted, sick mind of man. And so, we continue on in verse 32. We'll drop down. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generation in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Not only after the flood, but when? After the Tower of Babel, and the whole thing is a setup for now, the next verse. But let me intervene what Moses now tells us in Deuteronomy. See, Deuteronomy is the epitome of a verse that was written by King David. He says that he made known his acts unto the children of Israel. He made known his ways unto Moses. And Moses details in the book of Deuteronomy why the Almighty did what he did. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7 tells us a very important thing to lead into the Tower of Babel incident. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Ask your elders, and they will tell you about the time when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam. He set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. What he did at the Tower of Babel, he did for a reason. He destroyed the one world government of Nimrod, confused the languages, divided up these nations. Why? Because he had a plan that he would choose people that would not be born for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that these children, these offspring, would be his priests, his representatives to reconcile the world back to himself. We see in the time of Jonah, way into the future, hundreds of years in the future, that after a revival had started in the land of Israel, things started to get together. He said, now go to Assyria and tell the people to repent. Why is this important? Because the Assyrians need to be reconciled to the one true God as well. They repented. And because of that, they were used to judge Israel later on. But now we're going to find out how it all happened. These nations were divided. The Almighty then chose a group of people, one nation, one family, to be his representatives. And this is how it happened. Genesis chapter 1. 11, verse 1. The whole earth was of one language and one speech. Seems to be saying the same thing, but in the Hebrew, it's saying that every word meant the same thing. See, we use the same word in different continents in English, and even from north to south, and that's one word means several different things. At this time, every word meant exactly what everyone understood it to mean. There was no confusion. It was absolute crystal clear communication, but that communication was used to build an empire to enslave people. A prison planet, if you please. And it came to pass, as they, the offspring of Noah, journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they all dwelt there. And they said one to another, go to, which in Old English, King James English, means come now, the opposite of when you tell someone to go to. It means literally, come now, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime they had for mortar. And down the Dead Sea Valley, in that area, the slime, the asphalt, the pitch was used to cement these bricks together. They were not taking the time to chisel out stone. That would take too long. No, they made brick, they burned them in furnaces to harden them, and then they built the tower, and they used the pitch from that part of the world. And they said, let us come now, or go to, come now, and let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered upon the face of the whole earth. And so now, the political, economic, and religious one-world government ruled by Nimrod is now in place. It's the beginning of his kingdom. Then Yahovah came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men had built, and he said, behold, the people are one. They are echad. They're not one person. They are united. They are all united in what they are planning to do, and they have all one language, and this which they've begun, now nothing is going to be restrained from them. Now, let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahovah scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city and their totalitarian prison planet. Therefore, the name is called Babel, because Yahovah did confound the language of the people there. Now in verse 10, these are the generations of Shem. It shifts gear. Now we're going to find the chosen people. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. We are going to be given the date of the next generation, how many years they lived, and finally we get to verse 16, and Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg. Now they would only name Peleg, which means divided, Peleg, if this is at the time that the Tower of Babel and the languages were confused and the people were divided. So definitely less than 400 years after the flood that took place. Now we follow this family, the Hebrews, the Ebers. We follow them down to verse 26. Terah, who is the offspring, lived 70 years and begat Avram, Nahor, and Haran. And verse 27, now these are the generations of Terah. And it says that Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. This is Babylon. It's on the other side of the Euphrates River. And Avram and Nahor took themselves wives. The name of Avram's wife was Sarai. And now we go to chapter 12. This is when the Almighty interrupts the course of human events. Yahovah said to Avram, get out of your country, from among your kindred, and from your father's house unto a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless them that bless you. I will curse those that curse you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And so Avram did depart. He crossed over the Euphrates River, becoming the first technically Hebrew when he crossed over the Euphrates River. And as he departed, and this is after the death of his father when he leaves. And so Abraham departed as he was told, and he took Lot with him. And Lot was his nephew. He could have been years and years older because he was the son of the oldest brother of Haran. And so he could have been many years older, but still his nephew. And Abraham was 75 when he departed out of Haran. Now this is when, and we'll get into some detail on this, when the 430-year sojourn begins, when Abraham departs from Haran. And it's 430 years until Exodus 12:40, the actual Passover and our exodus from Egypt, exactly 430 years later. Now, the way that the English translation has it, it makes it sound like we were in bondage for 430 years, but we're going to see that that is not the case. We have several different ways to cross-reference this. In verse 5, and Abram took Sarai his wife and Lot his brother's son, all their substance, and the souls that they had gotten, and they went forth into the land of Canaan. The land of Canaan, filled with sexual perversion. And into the land of Canaan they came. Abraham passed through unto the place of Shechem, which is modern day Nablus. Why it's called Nablus is because the Arabs can't pronounce a P. It's really Neapolis, but they can't pronounce Neapolis, so they say Nablus, okay? It is the hotbed of Palestinian terrorism, even to this day in the land of Israel, but at the time it was Shechem. That was the name of this city. And so it was at Shechem in the plain of Moreh, which means the teacher. But the Canaanite was then in the land. Again, what is the big deal about the Canaanites? You have to understand the history, and you have to understand what these people are doing, and we are going to find out because we're going to see brimstone rain down out of heaven and incinerate this before the night is over. Right here is some of the brimstone that rained down 4,000 years ago. 95.72% pure sulfur, 3 other trace metals. It'll melt right through the windshield of a car even today, but that's later. Then, when Yahovah appeared unto him at Shechem, this is where he built an altar. Whenever the revelation comes, when the Almighty meets with you, what Avram does is he builds an altar to never, ever forget this moment. And this is the seriousness whenever the Almighty speaks to you. And it can be rare. But those who think he's constantly chattering away with them, okay, why don't you build an altar there? Because when he gives you instructions, it is a monumental thing in your life. And Abraham treated every one of these things with the utmost dignity. And in fact, the Almighty said, when you come into the land, Israel, do not remove the ancient markers. Do not remove the altars that were put there before, because you may not know what they are, but I know what they are, and he is able to reveal this very thing to us. And so he went from thence and he moved over to Bethel, the house of Elohah, and he pitched his tent there, and he built another altar unto Yahovah. And there he called, at Bethel, he called upon the name of Yahovah. Many, many years later, this is where the tabernacle is going to be built. It will remain there for 400 years at Bethel before David removes it and takes it to Jerusalem. All these cities, all these names, extremely important. And what I was quoting is out of Deuteronomy 19:14. Thou shalt not, these are the instructions to the children of Israel, thou shalt not remove another person's landmark, which they of old time have set in your inheritance, which you shall inherit in the land that Yahovah thy Elohim gives thee to possess it. And so now it says that Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there because there was a famine in the land of Canaan, and we see what transpired when he is down there. And then when he comes out of Egypt after a period of time, in chapter 13, verse 7, there arose a strife between the herdsmen of Abraham's cattle, it says in your King James, and whenever you see the word cattle, it is flocks. Do not think of bovine, you must think of flocks of sheep and goats. They did have bovine down in Egypt, but this is not what it's talking about. The word cattle is King James for the Hebrew, which means flocks. And it says, that the strife arose between Abraham and Lot's herdsmen, and it says that the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt then in the land. Again, bringing this up, what is in the land? They are in the middle of a sick, twisted, and perverse world. And Abraham said, we don't need this. You decide. If you want to go to the left, go to the left. If you want to go to the right, whichever way you go, you take the land and I'll take the opposite. You choose. You're going to have it your way. And Lot lifted up his eyes toward the plain of Jordan, that was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord before it was destroyed. And Sodom and Gomorrah was there. And it was well watered all over Sodom and Gomorrah before he destroyed it. And then it says, so Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, but, and this is verse 12, but Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain. So he was in the land of Canaan, but Lot turned his eyes and he went and dwelt in the city of Sodom. And it says that in verse 13, the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinners before Jehovah. And it was at that time that the Almighty spoke to Abraham and said, arise, walk through the land, the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give this to you. And so now at this point, when he was told that he was going to be given this land, now he's told to walk through the length and the breadth of this very land. And so now Abraham disappears for the next 10 years. We don't even hear about him. Why? Because all this land goes all the way to the river in Egypt, all the way to the Euphrates, and he walked the length and the breadth of the land. It takes him 10 to 13 years to accomplish all of this. And then he finally moved his tent and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is Hebron. And he built another altar to Jehovah. Now we are going to come to the incident where Lot is taken hostage. 4 kings against 5 kings. And they come to Sodom and they take away Lot. And Abraham gets together his household of 318 men. And he makes a commitment to the Almighty. We don't hear about it at first. We hear about it afterwards, that he has raised his hands in a solemn oath to the Almighty. If you allow me and my 318 servants to go and rescue Lot and to conquer these kings who have gone against fortified cities and have taken them and have taken their people, taken their treasures, if you allow me to do this, I will not put my hand to the spoils. I am going to trust in your promise that this land has been given to me, and I am not going to go the way anyone else would and receive the spoils from this. I'm going to trust in you. I have faith that you are my sufficiency, and I am committing my life to do your will. I think now is a good moment to stop, because each week we want to give you an opportunity to give to support the work of this ministry. We are freely, at great expense, we are freely giving to the entire world. Close to 20 man days of labor, 16 to 20 man days of labor goes into each one of these productions for our Shabbat Night Live. We are broadcasting over 127 countries, but to stay on the air, it takes your help, your support. So if we are a blessing to you in your life, if we are ministering to you, then we ask that you trust the Almighty and that you then sow seed back into this ministry so that we can continue to reach out. Abraham, with 318 men, was able to accomplish what the kings and all their forces in the fortified cities of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar could not do. And when he came back, the king of Sodom came forth to meet him. But someone far more important, we read about in the 18th verse of Genesis 14. And then Melchizedek, or the Melech Zadok, Melech, king, Zadok, righteousness, the king of righteousness, the king of Shalom, Yerushalayim, brought forth bread and wine. He was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed Avram and said, "Blessed be Avram of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth." And then he blessed the Most High God, which had delivered the enemies of Abraham into his hand. And Abraham, it says, gave the Melchizedek tithes of all that he possessed. Yeshua said, Abraham saw my day, and he rejoiced in it. Rejoiced of his vast empire, the gold, the silver, the flocks. He gave a tenth of everything because he shared with them the broken body. He shared with them the shed blood. He shared with them the coming of the Messiah. And Abraham rejoiced in it and gave a tenth of everything. What an incredible reality. And then the king of Sodom said, "Give me back the people that belong to me. Take all the goods." Abraham said, "No. I have sworn by the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, I am not going to take," in verse 23, "from a thread to a shoe latchet, lest you should say that I, and all my perversion, all my sin of my city has somehow made Abram wealth. No, I'm not going to take anything. Take everything. Just, what the plunderers have taken, let them take it, but I'm not taking anything." And then, now chapter 15, after these things, the word of Yahweh came unto Abram and said, "I am your shield and your exceeding great reward." And Abram responded and said, "Well, what kind of exceeding great reward can you give me? I'm a wealthy old man. I'm going to go to the grave childless. And my heir, Eliezer from Damascus is my steward, and I'm going to have to leave everything to those servants who have been born in my household. What are you going to do?" And the Almighty said, "I am going to bring forth an heir for you out of your own loins." And then he took him outside and said, "Look up at the stars in heaven. Can you count them? So your seed shall be. And just as the grain of the sand of the sea cannot be numbered, so that is what your offspring is going to be." And he said, "Well, how am I going to know this?" And verse 9, and he said unto him, "Take a heifer of 3 years old, a heifer, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle and a young pigeon." Now this is where some illiterates get a 3-year-old red heifer from, because they don't know what they're talking about. The red heifer was not 3 years old. Okay? Could be a year and a half old, could well over 5 years old. There's no stipulation whatsoever. But in order to try to get a 3.5-year ministry, they concoct this whole thing that Jesus is the 3-year-old cow. Well, there's no such thing in the scripture, except for right here. Here is a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and a ram of 3 years old. And he said, "You take these, you cut them in half, except for the birds. You just break them and you put them on each side of the valley. Let the blood run into the middle of this, and you and I are going to walk up and down through that blood." This is what is called a blood covenant. And when Avram and the Almighty walk up and down through that blood, whoever breaks the covenant, they die. Just like these animals are dead, that's what a blood covenant means. Whoever breaks a blood covenant are dead as the animals that ratified this covenant. And then the Almighty put Abraham into a deep sleep, and the Almighty, like a smoking fire pot, like a furnace of fire, walks up and down through that blood to signify, this is not even up to you, Abraham. You're going to be dead and in the ground, sound asleep. 4,000 years ago, the creator of the heavens and the earth made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. All the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Shockwaves are going to shake the earth as heaven reaches down to fulfill that promise. And it will happen, ladies and gentlemen, this is the generation. And every nation that stands against the covenant of the Almighty will find themselves on the battlefield against the Almighty. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reality that's playing out at this very time. And right now, it says in verse 13, and he said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a strange land, a stranger in a land that is not yours, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Okay, there's another way to translate this. Now listen to this. Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs for 400 years. They shall serve them and they shall afflict them. Because it'll now be 400 years until the Exodus of Exodus chapter 12, verse 40. From when he was told to leave Haran, cross over the Euphrates River, and then go into a land that he will give him, it was 430 years from then. But now it'll be 430 years from now, because the Almighty can't change how many years we're going to be in bondage. But now we have the progression of time. And even though this is out of time sequence, because we still had to get in a little bit later, it's going to tell about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, about the birth of Ishmael and Isaac and all. From when this covenant is made, it will be 400 years before we are coming out of the land. And also, we read in verse 14, that nation whom they shall serve, I will judge. And afterward, they shall come out with great substance, the substance from that nation. Here's where the promise is made. And in 5 weeks from now, we will finally arrive at that moment when we walk out of Egypt with the plunder. And thou shalt go to your fathers in peace in an old age, but in the fourth generation, they will come forth hither again. The fourth generation from when we go into that nation, which we will now understand to be Egypt, in the fourth generation, they will come out, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet come to a full. See, the Almighty does not judge before his time. He is long-suffering, not willing that any should perish. Now, where are these four generations? I'm going to take you to Exodus 1 right now so that we understand the timing of this. Exodus chapter 2, verse 1, there went a man out of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And we are going to find out that Jochebed is literally the daughter of Levi. Not the granddaughter, not the great-granddaughter, but literally the daughter of Levi, who is the brother of Joseph who came into Egypt. And in Exodus 6:16, these are the names of the sons of Levi, according to their generations, Gershon, Kohath, Merari. In the years of the life of Levi were 137. And the sons of Kohath was Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Who is the son of Kohath? Amram. Who does Amram then, and then verse 20, it says, and Amram took Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife. This is the daughter of Levi. Just as Kohath was a son of Levi, now Amram took his father's sister to wife, which is his aunt, and she bare him Aaron and Moses. And the years of life of Amram are 137 years. And then in verse Exodus 2:21, Yitro gave Moses his daughter Zipporah, and she bare him a son and called his name Gershon. For he said, Moses said, I've been a stranger in a strange land. And so now, we have who's coming out of Egypt? We have Amram and Jochebed, okay? So we have Jochebed, which is the first generation after Levi. We have Amram, then we have Moses, and then we have Gershon. We have the fourth generation now coming out of Egypt. Ladies and gentlemen, that is according to the work of E.W. Bullinger and also Ginsburg, the Rabbi Ginsburg, who became a believer, who worked with E.W. Bullinger, calculated this to be at 215 years they were actually in the land of Egypt. Again, 430 years from when Abraham was told to come out and the promise was made. Then it would be 430 years before the Exodus, or from when the covenant was made and the Almighty walked through the blood 400 years from then. And then he was told at that incident it would be the fourth generation, which is numbered right down the line, which comes out to be 215 years, according to the chronology work of Edith Bullinger and Christian, which he renamed himself, Ginsburg, the Orthodox rabbi who was solely responsible for the Masorah, the Masoretic text. He saved it from extinction. So now we see that in verse 17, it came to pass that when the sun went down, the smoking furnace, the pieces, we've already covered that. The Almighty was the one that walked up and down through that, making the covenant with Abraham. In chapter 16, we have the incident of Hagar. At 86 years of age, Hagar, the handmaid of Sarah, who couldn't have any children, then she bears Ishmael. And Ishmael, this is the angel of Yahovah told Hagar what to name him, and it said that in verse 12, he will be a wild ass of a man. That's literally what it says in the Hebrew. He's going to be a wild ass of a man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he will constantly be in the face of his brethren. Can't get along, fighting one tribe against another. My goodness, is this not exactly what we have seen of the 12 sons that came out of Ishmael? The wars that have gone on. They just talk about a wild ass of a man. That is exactly what we see in the not only scripture, but in the history of the Middle East. And then in chapter 17, Avram was 90 years old, and Yahovah appeared unto him again. Now in 17, which one is this? Chapter 17, at this point, this is the fifth revelation to Avram, the fifth revelation. And he said to Avram, walk before me and be perfect, and I'm going to make my covenant between me and you and multiply you exceedingly. And this is where the Almighty changed his name from Avram to Abraham, which means the father of many nations. And he is going to be given, in verse 8, his seed will be given all of the land of Canaan. It will be stripped away from these sexual perverts, these predators, these pornographers and pedophiles, figure of speech, these traffickers, sex traffickers. They will be completely taken out of this land, and you will inherit this. Now this is the token. This is the token between me and you. You are going to circumcise the foreskin of every male in your household. The servants that you buy for money, the people that come out of your loins, every one of them is going to be circumcised. And this is going to be the token of my promise that all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. And so from then on, every day, several times a day, every one of the sons of Abraham are reminded, because of the circumcision, because there's a difference in their daily routine even, because now it is a constant reminder that the Almighty made this promise with Abraham. And every circumcised male can hearken back and realize that the Almighty made a covenant with Abraham that will be fulfilled, and it doesn't matter how dead and how asleep Abraham or his children are, the Almighty will fulfill this very thing. And then the Almighty came down. Well, Abraham was living in the plain there. He came down with his angels to see if, as it says in chapter 18, verse 20, Yahweh said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, because their sin is very great and grievous, I will go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it. Because there are people that were crying out to the Almighty. And so the Almighty sent fire and brimstone down upon the cities of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. The angels came in and took the hands of Lot and his wife and Lot's 2 daughters and dragged them out of the city. Fire and brimstone rained down on the city, incinerating the cities of the plains. And then we read about what happens to Lot and his 2 daughters. His 2 daughters then have children by their father. One is named Ammon, the other is Moab, and they become the Ammonites and the Moabites. Now in the capital of Jordan is Ammon. Ammon. These are the offspring of the incestuous relationship between Lot and his daughter. His 2 daughters, the Ammonites and the Moabites. And it is Lot's wife who turns back. She just doesn't glance back, she turns back. She doesn't want to leave all of the accoutrements, all that is available there in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah for her. She turns back and she is incinerated, and all that is left are the mineral salts from her body. And that's what still leached from the ground, from the ash there at the city of Sodom and Gomorrah are the mineral salts of the people who continue to leach to the surface, and the desert gazelle are now eating the mineral salts from the incinerated inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. And now we see that Avram, finally, at 100 years of age, has a child with Sarah, who means now princess. From Sarai to Sarah, from Avram to the father of many nations, now has a son, and his name is Yitzhak. Yitzhak is then the prize, the pride, the joy, the future of Abraham, and then the Almighty tells him. Chapter 22, take your son, your only son Isaac. Now, Ishmael is his son, but he's calling him his only son because this is the son of promise. Avram did what he thought he could do and should do, and he had a child by this Egyptian woman, Hagar. But no, that's not the child of promise. This is your only son. This is the one I promised you, the one that you love. And get into the land of Moriah, the land where Yah will be our teacher, our More. See, rabbi doesn't mean teacher. Rabbi means great one. More is teacher. Go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will tell you of. And that mountain is the mountain, Mount Moriah, the mount where Yah will be our teacher. This is the mountain where the way of salvation will be shown. And there it is that Abraham builds, then takes his son with his servants and approaches from the valley, comes up onto the temple, what becomes the Temple Mount in the future, and then has his servants put the wood of the sacrifice on the shoulders of Yitzhak. And he said, son, follow me. And the servants stay behind on what will become the Temple Mount. Yitzhak says to his father, Father, we have the wood of the sacrifice, but it's on my shoulders. I'm carrying the wood of the sacrifice on my shoulders. Where's the lamb? Abraham said, God will provide himself a lamb. You follow me. So Abraham led Yitzhak up to the highest peak of Mount Moriah, which is still to this day north of the city wall of Jerusalem. And so as he took him up to that highest peak, he built another altar. He bound his son to the wood of the sacrifice. He then raised his knife in obedience to the Almighty. See, when it says for a burnt offering, it doesn't mean to incinerate. It just means a complete offering that cannot be undone. And as he raised his knife to plunge it into the body of his beloved son, the son of promise. The Almighty sent his angel and speaking in the first person, Avram, the Almighty knows that you will not withhold the life of your only son. Stop. Now this was not some kind of sick joke. It says that Yahovah tested Avram. Would he believe and follow him? Is the Almighty able to raise the dead? Because he knew that his son was to be his heir. This is the one. Is he hearing from the Almighty? Has he heard from him all these times? Every one of these altars he built in stone is a reality, or was I dreaming it? Did the Almighty call me by name, tell me what to do, or am I dreaming this? Am I crazy, or did he do what he said? And he said, I'm going for it. I know what I heard. I'm going to obey. And the angel stopped him. And there was a ram, a male lamb of the first year, with his horn caught in a crown of thorns, a thicket. And that ram was the substitute for the son. The male lamb was the substitute for the son. A ram which did no sin, did nothing wrong, but yet was provided as the substitute for the son. And so now we put in place a picture of a substitutionary sacrifice. And that one day we will see at Mount Moriah where the Lamb of God, with the wood of the sacrifice on his shoulders, then answers Yitzhak's question. Father, we have the wood, it's on my shoulder, where is the lamb? And Abraham replies, God will provide himself a lamb. You follow me. See, Abraham put in place a rehearsal, a messianic prophecy of a substitutionary sacrifice for his son, which is the nation of Israel, and his sons, all who call upon his name. Yivarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Yair Yehovah panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Yehovah will bless you and keep you. Yehovah will make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yehovah will lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of Yeshua, the Prince of Peace. Amen and amen.